So here I am after a month with, as you've read the title, a new rig. And this new rig is our Char4 rig, the fourth iteration of a series of rigs, which I never know when will stop. Undoubtedly, you've probably noticed this panel on the side saying Armature Panel and Welcome to Char4. Let's get into that. Note that this UI isn't the final UI. It's just, it won't be the final UI. It might be the final UI. There's a high probability it is. But other than that, I guess let's get into the rig. So we have ourselves here, and it looks completely different. It already looks like a different rig. We've got different bending. We've got different. Everything is just kind of like different here. There's nothing redone. There's nothing that's been taken from any old rig. This has been 100% done from scratch, from the ground up, using Char3 as a base, but not using it as a final. Nothing in so 100% of this is all new made, everything here, and we have things like arrows, these air floating shoulder control, just the typical things that you would expect from a rig that is going to be paid. So, now undoubtedly, you're now wondering what this giant panel is doing. This panel is contributing to the majority of the rig right here. This is basically what I've spent most of the time doing. It's coating this so that way it looks just like how it is. So let's start from the ground up. So at the bottom here we have fancy feet controls. So when you're selecting a rig, you can toggle left and right fancy feet. What fancy feet does, it says that we want the actual foot to be resting on the exact spot that it is. It's useful for things like if you wanted the foot to be outwards or something like that, like something special like flat on the ground, something that you wouldn't get traditionally. Now, working our way up here, we can see our weapon options. And inside our weapon options, you have, of course, left and right hand. If we click on these, it opens up a little search menu. Now, you can, of course, scroll through all of this. It has every single possible item you could have in the game. Literally every item. So let's just choose one. Let's choose Crimson AK, which there are 3 of. I've learned this out recently, and it's kind of ridiculous. So there's, let's put Crimson AK in one hand. What it will do is it'll download it, it'll import it, it'll parent it, and it will give it its correct texture. And if you look, it's already parented to this hand, and what you might notice is this arrow. What this arrow is if we turn on some of our local controls here, is this arrow is where it's pointing. It's like saying the direction for where it is. So if you don't like where it is at the moment, you can always just position it, move it a little bit. Maybe you want to on its side a little. It's up to you here. So that is, and then let's go to left hand. Let's choose like a melee item. So let's just go to a melee and let's do, I don't know which one of these looks good. Let's do a Coroller. It's going to take a bit for it to download everything, create the file, import it, download then the texture, and it'll then import it into here, which you can then, move. And note the arrows are parented to the arms. The arms are parented to the center body, or they're parented to the body going upwards, and the legs are separate. Another thing is that these are parented to that. So it's all a bunch of parenting done. And one of the best things and easiest things about this is instead of having to go out of pose mode to go into this and delete it, and then having to make sure all the materials are deleted so that way it's actually physically off of there, you can just click no weapon, and it'll take care of that for you. It'll delete the objects. It'll delete all of their orphan data. Moving our way up here, we have our skin appearance, which is just things like I want a specific class, and I want a specific dye. Note again is that all this stuff, it's completely procedural. It will actually generate this like databases list on load, just completely in the background, so that way you don't have to actually look at it, you don't have to download it on new updates, except for like certain things, like if they added a completely new item, if they added like a completely new weapon to the game, if they like, for example, when we had the what was it, trooper come along, that had to be accounted for. Another thing is so apart from that, we have things like face items, which is of course, your classic face items. We can get all fed in. It'll put it onto there. It'll put it on the head. If you select no face, it'll delete that and everything. So let's give it a face. Let's give it happy face, because we want to be happy here. Waste items work how you would expect it. Comes here, you select it, and it'll import it in. Give it a little bit of time. Most of the time is actually just downloading. So if your internet is slow, then this is going to take a while. If your internet is faster, it's going to take less time. And in the event that the waste item, like for example USS Krunk, doesn't use legs, like the legs are got rid of or whatever, it'll automatically account for that and the legs will be gone. So let's just go ahead and select no waste again. Back items, they're back items. Put them on your back. Go in, they import, they instantiate, they're on the back. Some of them are broken. This is of course the first. This is going to be like the first update. This is like first release. So don't expect 100% of things to work. Most of the time it's just scaling issues. Then let's choose a hat. Let's actually search for one. Let's choose a Season 3 relic. So, let's see. One of them, let's choose Puppet Master. That looks like a cool one, right? So we select it, it downloads, it imports, it creates node setup, it even gets rid of the head. Faces are really weird when you have headless. So that's, then you get to do all that stuff. And I should also note that this is how Krunker looks. This is like the exact scale of the items that are supposed to be. Like all of the wastes and whatever, that's all correct. So don't yell at me in the comments that my head is too small. You can always just make it bigger. But yeah, it's basically how you would expect it to work from a professional $10 rig. And yes, you can get this entire thing for only $10. Another thing about it is that Character 4, it's only 1.3 megabytes. It's not a large rig. It's like you're not going to be waiting a while to download it. The more time you're going to be waiting to download is actually the item, like the attached items, because those actually they are actually more. They're actually larger files. The images are actually larger files than the rig itself, which is crazy to think how this is all procedural and it all works. And any new updates, it'll automatically just sync it up. You don't need to wait for someone to spend 14 hours on their rig in order to update it for one update. No none of that. You just take it, you just move it, and it all just syncs up. So let's actually go to a newer hand item. And of course you have your classics, the ones that are by default, like Sniper AK, all the default skins. You got all your season ones. Another thing that works is things like Rainbow. So like Rainbow Sniper will work. Those pattern textures will work. It's a lot of edge cases I had to code in. And it just works. One thing I will say is, at least for the initial update, things will not be animated. I'm not adding in animation keyframes. If you want to do something like animate the texture of this, you would go into shading. You would select this. You'd press Control T. You would give it a value node, a combine XYZ node. Plug this into here. Put this into here. Then give this like octothorpe frame divided by 30, and yes, I'll call that octothorpe, and animates. So yeah, that is Char4 rig in a nutshell. I will be releasing it soon. Stay tuned for that video, where you will actually be able to have it for yourself and use it and enjoy it and make your render time way faster than any what otherwise would be. So yeah.